fair to say that it wasn't an all-time classic this weekend at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, but there was very much a lot to talk about and some huge surprise results. Baku definitely performed once again, but what were the 5 main talking points from the 2025 Azerbaijan Grand Prix this weekend? Well, let's go through them, guys. Let's go through all of the highlights from what was a pretty good race, to say the very least. So if you saw my qualifying review, you'll know that the McLarens did not perform particularly well. Both Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri started near the bottom of the top 10, and Piastri was very much eager to get going at the start of the race. A little too eager, as it turned out, because he jumped the start, then he backed off again, and he went all the way down to last place, heading into the first corner. But that was only the beginning of his misery, because he ended up locking up into, I think it was turn 5, further on around the lap, and he just went wide. There was no pressure from another driver forcing him off the track, or he didn't make any contact or anything like that. He just plain went off the road, into the barriers, out of the race. Piastri gone after lap 1, and that made a golden opportunity for Lando Norris to be able to make some big gains on his championship rival during this Grand Prix. Piastri just basically sat back in a marshal's post after as well and watched the race on a mobile phone, which definitely gave me Kimi Räikkönen at Monaco vibes when he went back to his yacht and just chilled out. Or maybe it was more Alonso in Brazil back in the day with his deck chair. I don't know. Either way, it was a pretty interesting image, to say the very least. But could Lando take advantage of Piastri's retirement? Not really, no. But it wasn't all his own fault, in fairness. He was really hampered by a poor pit stop by McLaren, this being a one-stop race. He ran those medium tyres so far into the Grand Prix, and it looked as though he might have jumped the likes of Lawson and Tsunoda through the pit stops, but it was not to be. He had a poor pit stop. It was about 4.1 seconds, something like that, around 2 seconds slower than what you would really want it to be. And as a result, despite some incredible lap times, Tsunoda and Lawson stayed ahead of him by about 2 seconds. They would have been neck and neck had McLaren not made that mistake. Norris did everything he could to try and overtake them in the closing stages, but nothing doing on that front. And he ended up in P7 as a result, only gaining 6 points on Oscar Piastri. That gap is now down to 25 points, which is exactly a race win as it turns out. But without that pit stop, I really do think Lando Norris probably would have got about 5th instead. It's not that much better, but it's still another 4 championship points. But as it is, he does gain on his teammate, but he's still got it all to do heading into Singapore next time out. Let's talk about the Mercedes next, a real positive one here. Of course, George Russell, very ill coming into this weekend, but he still managed to get a very credible P2 finish. Very impressive from him. He was kind of hampered by Kimi Antonelli at one of the restarts, being forced wide by him onto an awkward kind of line. Lost a few places because of that, but the pace of George Russell was absolutely fantastic during this Grand Prix, and he managed to jump a very impressive Carlos Sainz and his teammate through all of those pit stops. Kimi Antonelli, meanwhile, managed to get P4 as well, so very much a return to form for him and Mercedes as well. Very impressive from the Silver Hours during this weekend, but not quite as impressive as Carlos Sainz. Wow, I mean, this guy has had such a rough season. You know, some of it's been his fault, some of it's been the team's fault, some of it's been the car's fault. Things hadn't really fallen into place for him this entire season so far, but that all changed in Baku. He was running in P2 for the majority of this race as he started on the front row of the grid. He was overtaken by George Russell, but he ended up getting P3. Williams' first podium of the season. His first podium for Williams, and also the first podium for a Williams driver in a full-length Grand Prix. No, I am not counting the Belgian Grand Prix in 2021. Sorry, George Russell, but that was not a full-length Grand Prix. Since 2017 at Baku as well. Lance Stroll being the last guy to do that for Williams. It's been that long. Fair play to them. That is massive in their battle to be able to get 5th in the Constructors' Championship, and it's a huge confidence booster for Carlos Sainz as he heads into one of his best tracks as well, Singapore. He always performs well at Singapore, so watch out for him in a couple weeks' time around Marina Bay. The last thing I want to highlight, 2 Red Bull drivers, one past, one present, Yuki Tsunoda, Liam Lawson. They both got some great results this weekend, really. They both needed this in effect, and I think Tsunoda more than Lawson, I'd say. Lawson has been performing well, don't get me wrong, but incredible for him to get P5 in the RB. did a fantastic job to hold off the likes of Tsunoda, who was in a much faster car, at least you would think in a much faster car anyway. But regardless of the pace of that car, Tsunoda got a top 6 finish. It's what he needed. He desperately needed something like that this weekend. He's not scored a point in such a long time. He really, really did need that. And he had a very solid performance. It's been his best performance in a weekend on the whole for Red Bull, without a doubt so far. So hopefully that will allow him to kick on. Not even mentioned Max Verstappen yet. I mean, there's not really much to talk about, to be honest. He got pole position. He got the fastest lap. He led away from pole for the entire Grand Prix. He won it by like 15 seconds, something like that. I mean, he was absolutely dominant. A Grand Slam, another Grand Slam for Max Verstappen. Just wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Honestly, he just absolutely on another level today. He was, of course, helped by the McLarens crashing out and then being also back in the grid. I mean, maybe it would have been different if the McLarens were at the front, but it doesn't matter. You know, he deserved that pole position on Saturday and he duly converted it on Sunday. So watch out. I mean, people are saying maybe Max will be back into the championship fight. But I mean, maybe if he keeps doing this, there's a possibility of it. But overall, I would say that's pretty unlikely still. I mean, I expect McLaren to be back on form at Singapore, but the cat has been firmly put among the pigeons. The bull has well and truly been unleashed into the China shop as we head into Singapore. So what's going to happen there? Anybody's guess, but I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be entertaining no matter what, I reckon. But yeah, those are the 5 things that we learned. So hard to summarize everything. Let me know your thoughts on Baku in the comments below, guys. Rate the race out of 10. I want to hear what you have to say on this one. As always, like, share, comment, subscribe. As always, guys, have a fantastic day wherever you're on the world today, and we'll see you very soon.